guys at the cemetery in a while. Yeah. Well, on the days it's really cold, we don't go.
No.
Well, you're definitely cold.
There are very few cold days.
You know what?
She's very intolerant.
Oh, I'm highly intolerant. And Jazz doesn't like it when it
Well, there was a
goes
place to
below
hang up your coat tonight. You want me to go do that?
No, I'll just put
40.
You sure?
I gave her a bath today. She's blowing her coat now. She's molting.
It's a decent white.
You know what I did? I locked my
Oh, God. Oh, yeah, I think I told her. We have a crisis
panic.
this morning.
I was ready to go to the health club and I realized I locked my keys in the car.
And then there's this frantic.
But I couldn't turn my backup key. I finally found it.
Yeah. They made it to the pool.
Yeah, I decided to do it again. There's a physical therapist there. And I said, pen and ice doesn't bother me. And I saw him again. He said, go for it. But be mindful.
Yeah.
Now, what about the one on where Tony goes?
Well, I haven't heard back from her. Tony goes to a physical therapist
Right.
who he had
Yeah,
recommended.
just across the river.
Because the physical therapist at our health club doesn't accept Medicare.
Oh, Amy Weinstein.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah, she.
I knew she was.
One thing about they look a lot bigger. Oh, Spanish class. Oh, we're gonna be gone.
Tony's in Texas.
Yes. I
Have you
talked
talked
yesterday.
have you talked to him since my thing?
No, no. Maybe I'll text him. I don't want to bother him. Unless he wants to talk.
Yeah.
I generally don't like to bother people when they're...
You know, that's what's good about Texas. You know, someone says you're busy, you don't have to.
Yeah, right. Right.
That's why I love.
He just left me. I took him to the airport yesterday.
Then you got the
Yeah.
flight on
I haven't taken
time.
I don't know, I guess.
Because that
I
last.
have an appointment with David, so I needed to get back.
You know that Atlanta blackout. You
Oh, I know.
it
He had a
affected.
direct flight.
There was
He had a direct flight on Southwest.
because there was a ripple effect.
Yeah. Yeah, fortunately, he didn't have to deal with
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah. I hate going through Atlanta.
Well,
You know that's the world's busiest airport. I thought it was just for me.
I spent an entire night
Oh, I hate
in
that
Atlanta.
place.
Just, I was down in Florida with a friend, and flew down. It was just a weekend, and coming back, our flight was delayed a few hours because of, I don't know, it was because of weather or something. And then we get to Atlanta, and they gave me the wrong gate information, and we had the wrong departure information. Finally, I mean, if all had gone smoothly, we would have been home. We would have been back in DC by 5:30 p.m.
Little people in the South think that when they die, they have to go to Atlanta.
Yeah, that's the old joke.
But we ended up, we finally get on the plane at 12:30 at night. There was no pilot for the plane. So we had to wait until 6:30 the next morning for the flight.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
So,
Anybody here want to fly?
so we spent the night at Hartsfield Airport, and I took a cab.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Hill Center. My name is Eli Campbell. I'm the programming coordinator here, and it's really excellent to see all of you out tonight. I know we're on a neighborhood-focused event this evening, but I like to ask anyway, how many of you are here at the Hill Center for the first time? Okay, good. Well, we have a lot of loyal people in the house. I love it. And hopefully you come back again. I just want to say thanks to Bill Press. This is our final talk with him of the year. It's been a really excellent 2017 with some national figures, some authors, some reporters, a lot of great people. And I'm glad that we're spending this holiday time where we should be, at home.
Yes.
So, I would like to also make sure that you guys know the next Bill Press event. We have the mayor on February 1st. I know we've had a hard time pegging down her schedule to get her in with Bill, but we're hopeful that this time will really work out and excited about the prospect of having her here. Now I'd like to introduce Bill Press, Amy Weinstein, and Ken Golding.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you. Thanks so much for coming. As Eli said, the last one of the year. And it's nice to see you. We're excited to have the mayor coming on February 1st, and also Chairman Tom Perez, the chair of the DNC, will be coming along. We'll give you a day for important days with him. And Congresswoman Jackie Spears, leading the Me Too movement with Senator Kirsten Gillibrand in Congress, is coming along as well. So Eli asked how many have been, or this is the first time in the Hill Center, no takers, I understand, that's good. People. How many live on the Hill? All right, yes. Well, we know why you're here, because we've had a lot of change on the Hill, a big change on the Hill, maybe the biggest certainly in a long time. We've lived through it all as neighbors. The destruction of a high, junior high, and the construction of the 700 project, and now we're living through the opening days as various elements of this big structure across the street, which is actually 3 buildings, not just one, at least by my count, and also very much mixed use with residential and retail and office space as well. And those of us who have lived through it still have many questions about how it got here and where it's going, and we have a great opportunity tonight to find out from the architect of this project, Amy Weinstein, or this Amy, who has certainly made her mark on Capitol Hill for years and years, and developer Ken Golding here from Somerset Development. Stanton Development, over, which is located, I just found out, right over Radici, where their offices are. So, the way this works, we usually talk for about half an hour, and then we'll open it up for questions here. Amy, let me start with you. It's been said that you have made your mark on Capitol Hill block by block. And you know, when you do walk around, you see that with the home care building at the corner where the alley is, with Radici, where Radici is, with this big project, with the Ellen Wilson homes. So I want to ask you, so what is your general approach or philosophy about architecture? And what was your feelings about then applying that to this site and this neighborhood?
Okay, is this working?
Yeah, that's what, yes.
Well, all those projects are in the Capitol Hill Historic District. So new construction in historic districts by law has to meet certain requirements. It has to be compatible with the historic district, but contemporary, clearly not old. And so that forms the basis for everything that I've done on the Hill. Looking at the context, trying to figure out what the original architects of the time had built. You know, what does our client want? Oftentimes in development, partners, King Calv and the late Frank Reed, and then putting it together and just trying to create something that fits in. It's second glance architecture oftentimes. At first glance it just fits. second glance, you think, oh, something different is going on there, what's going on? And that's kind of the attitude I take.
But you certainly have a different approach than if you go downtown and new buildings everywhere you look. Everything is very sleek, very modernist. If I don't know the right words. Glass and steel.
Right.
That's not new.
No, it is not. And
You're brick.
Well, on the hill, I'm red brick.
Yeah, oh, okay,
Because,
yeah.
because the hill is predominantly brick. And so, it just makes sense to use brick, and I love brick, because it's a very authentic, material. They just dig it out of the ground, form it into a rectangle, and add heat, and you have a brick. It's not like steel and glass, where you have a lot of sealant that you have to, wherever they come together, you have all this kind of gooey sealant. Brick is real, and it lasts a very long time, so it's good material.
Good material to work with, and you do a lot of different things with brick. I mean, it's not just flat brick wall, right? You have stuff jutting out all over, back and forth. Is that sort of a playful thing for you, or
Well,
what effect are you looking
at
for?
the larger scale, if you're talking about the bay projections, the regular kind of projections, that's part of what brings it into compatibility with the historic district. And it breaks down the scale of these buildings, which are somewhat larger than what is typically have been built on the hill. It breaks the scale down so that they fit together. Like if 710, there are actually 4 buildings.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. And each one, we were looking at a different era of.
Let me stop you. So there's the Trader Joe's building.
Right.
Okay.
And that goes, it's got Trader Joe's, and then it goes all the way up 8th Street to the Newsies.
Okay, so that includes those residential units there. Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's the office building on 7th Street.
Right.
And then there's the affordable housing building.
Right, north of
Where's the
6th.
4th one?
It's across the street from the affordable housing, it's the, where the plaza is going to be a fountain there is. That's 777 C Street, that's a separate, apartment house.
What is? Okay. Lost track of one. I'll check it out.
But each one, we were looking at different eras of Victorian architecture, so that they would feel different, just like Capitol Hill does, when a building, built in 1860, and then one next door built in 1888, something like that. So that's part of what makes them look different, which was really important to break down a large project into community-sized pieces.
So Ken, would you have thought of doing this project without Amy?
Probably not. I trust Amy implicitly. I mean, the beauty is that, we've done the corner at 660, and we've done the home cares, and you sort of get a sense of what the gestalt is of the entire block. And you want to keep that compatibility there. I mean, you could, I suppose, hire like, Sky and Waterfront. Yeah, Monty Hoffman, you could have a different architect on every building, and you get that look. But that's not what we want. We wanted the continuity and compatibility of buildings. You'll see that in where District Taco is the yellow brick building, and where the corner is where the old Crest used to be. It's a mean Art Modern building, and then of course it turns the corner into something modern. Copper building in between. It's the only way that happens, and maybe do it.
When I mentioned your local project, I should have mentioned 660. That's where my studio is. I work there and does a building. So I don't know why I forgot that one. But so when you saw this opportunity and Hines sitting there empty for a couple of years or something, what was your vision, Kevin? You looked at that, and knowing the neighborhood and having worked in the neighborhood, what did you want to accomplish there?
Well, in fairness, nothing comes by itself. You have to have a lot of people to come up with an idea. And way back in the 2007, 2008, some of the community leaders like Steve Semrod, George Didden, and Dick Wolf, and others asked Kitty, myself, and Frank if we were a meeting and talk about what the future could be on the Weinstein. And we played around with a lot of different ideas. We bounced it off Tommy Wells and Charles Allen at the time too. And ultimately, that evolved through these symposiums that Tommy Wells did to what the community wanted as a project. As a former city planner, it makes sense to have a mixed-use development if you can do it. That gives the multitude of uses that are symbiotically work because the people in the office leave during the day, so the garage is available at the nighttime. And the retail complements the street on 7th that doesn't have a sister street across the street. There's no retail across the street. And you had a population there during the week, Monday to Friday, 9 to 8, 9 to 5, who could complement the retail during the day. And of course, you get great traffic on weekends. So it was the idea, was to make it lively and functional.
And Amy, when you were contemplating what might go there, I mean, this idea of 4 buildings, 4 different buildings, I mean, was that immediately leap to that?
Well, we immediately leapt to bring rebuilding C Street to the site, because that was the problem that closed it. I believe in street grids. And that left immediately the site to the north of that, which is the affordable housing building. So that was pretty much, and that building is very thin. It's only 40 feet deep. So it didn't lend itself to, say, market rate residential. So it kind of, just fit. And then we had everything south, and it made sense to put the office building right across from the metro station in the busy intersection of 7th and Pennsylvania, and to put the greatest height of the project down there because it fronts onto that huge open space, the park that has no name. And so that's the tallest part of the project. It's also got the tallest residential part, Trader Joe's is in. And then the project kind of steps in height down as you move towards the Eastern Market. And then for a while, the building at 777 C Street, which is the one catty corner from Eastern Market, initially that was going to be potentially a hotel or a built-to-suit office building for a nonprofit. And we went through many iterations of that, and then in the end it settled into being another residential.
You used the magic word height. I think if there was any one complaint that I heard through the process was that the building is too tall. Do you think it fits in?
I do. Personally.
It's 7 stories in this corner?
It's 6 stories, the 7 stories setback. It's only partial 7 story. We lost the full 7 story. It's part of the negotiations with the people. When I come up Pennsylvania Avenue, that big open space opens up, I feel good about having the height of the office building there, because it really starts to define this public space. Give it a sense of being a place.
So some of the practical questions, Ken, Dr. Fortier. C Street, when's it going to finally open?
Oh, great question.
Some days it's, I walk to work every morning through there, and some days it's open, some days it's not, some days there's a stop sign there, sometimes there's not. I mean, what's going on?
They tell me, they being a contractor, the end of the month. They said that last month too. I'm hopeful that the end of the month they'll be done with the 8th Street construction that they're doing on the corner, and C Street will be open.
That's not your decision.
No, it isn't. It's the contractor and construction unit.
So let's talk about the residential units again. How many total residential units? And both buildings or all 3 buildings?
There's 34 in the Affordable Housing North building.
And they are occupied?
They're all occupied.
Then in,
26.
so in the Trader Joe building on 8th Street, there are 86, and then
That's all the way down 8th Street.
all the way down 8th Street, and then I think there are 46
That's right, 46.
building categories.
Plaza building. We call the Plaza Building, it's 46 units.
And that's the one that is open,
That's open 25% leased.
25% leased. Right. I'm curious, so what do you see as the total population that added to the neighborhood?
Oh,
Have you figured that out?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's 500 to 1,000 depending on who lives where and how many people in each of the offices, but say 750. What do you think? Is that reasonable?
Well, I think the office space, you know, there's fewer square feet per person these
Right.
days. From when
That's
we
true.
started, and so it could be close to 1,000.
It's more like 1,000. The Yards, our second floor tenant, is a co-working tenant. And so they tend to have more smaller offices, more people. I think the ANC is probably the business space there. I'm not sure, but they're looking at it.
So you have 25% in the 777 building component, right? And the 8th Street building, which is still being finished. You can see through if you walk down 8th Street, some of the apartments, but they're not up for rental yet.
They say by the end of the month we'll be showing them.
By
By the end of the month, that's what they say.
So why all rental and why no condos?
Well, that's a good question.
Curious.
Well, at the time, in 2010, when we were coming up with a plan, we would have loved to have done a hotel, done condos, and done retail. But the market, if you recall, 2010 was not a great year. The market for hotels was unfinanceable. The condo laws had changed so because our partner, East Bank, had been sued multiple times on the condos, and he didn't want to take the liability. The financing for apartments was way better. Or, then wait 7 years, the market changed. Condos are great. Hotel would have been fantastic, but by the time we were locked in with historic preservation and the zoning, you can't change them.
Is it, well, I have the impression that ownership condos provides a more stable community, building for the neighborhood. Is that a consideration, or is that not true?
I don't know. I took a trip to Geneva a few years ago. When I was in Geneva, I asked the tour guide how many people rented, and we only said 85% rent and 15% own. So I think in Europe, for example, rental is more common than ownership. In the United States, that may not be true.
Carol and I did a little visit. Not that we were going to, we just went to see the 777. So they're beautiful, beautiful apartments. We thought. Pricey. 1 bedroom, $3,200. Is that what the market is going for these days?
That's what Bizzuto said the market is. I'm not going to defend that price, but that's what they said the market is.
Is that proven to be true? And the 2-bedroom is 700 or something?
Well, so I'm not going to be in a position of defending that because I didn't set it, but I will say this, maybe when 8th Street opens, and all the units can be seen by anybody who wants to rent there, things might change a little bit. That's all I can say.
Right, yeah. Amy, I read somewhere that one of your real inspirations is Andy Albers. Now, I find it hard to make the leap from textile to that big brick building that we see across the way.
Specifically, it's the part of the building that Trader Joe's is in, that gray building. She did a weaving that were the same size rectangular shapes, and some of them were striped, some of them were striped this way, some of them had a cross in them as if they were windows, and then it was just this wonderful kind of design. And so the design of the building, the windows are all the same shape as the different brick panels, and then they kind of move around a lot, because I was really inspired by that weaving. Albers is fantastic. She and her husband always been people that artists that I studied.
Being married to a weaver, I hear a lot about Andy Albers. Next time you look at that building, think about it. Check out her work there. And speaking of windows, then you go to the corner of the office building, I guess, right?
Yeah.
What to call it. Those windows are so tall. I mean, they're 2 stories?
They're 2 stories. There is a floor that cuts in at the center. So it looks like a two-story space, it's really 2 floors of office.
Why?
Because it does a funny thing with how the building is scaled to the community. If every floor had its own window, you'd be able to say, oh, that's a 6-story building. But when you take and you double up windows, it changes the perception of how big a building is. It's interesting.
Fooled me.
Yeah.
No. And the other thing about that though is that the supports or
Yeah.
it's not like straight up. It almost looks like there was an earthquake.
It's tilted.
Right.
Yeah. What is that about, and what's that effect?
That's a very modern, contemporary take on Victorian brick architecture on the hill, where if you look up at the top of all the brick townhouses, they have these elaborate cornices that are all made by corbelling brick, where you lay a brick and then the next brick you nudge out an inch, and the next one you nudge out a little more. And it's called brick corbelling. So what those piers are, they are a rectangle in plan, and then with every successive course of brick, on one face it steps out, and on the other face it steps in. Nothing is twisted. All the brick is absolutely orthogonal, but it has the effect of looking like it twists, and it's just corbelling.
Corbelling.
Corbelling, C-O-R-B-E-L.
There you go. All right, so Ken, let's talk retail. I'm sorry, there are a couple of seats over this way. Is a seat up front here? Yeah. So I walk along 6th Street, and the Turkish linens lady is there, right? She's so lonely, right? She's been there a long time. I don't see many people in there. I feel sorry for her. The juice thing next door. I could stop there in the morning and get my juice on the way to the studio. They have the signs, but they haven't opened up yet. And there's nobody else. I mean, when are we going to see it? What percentage of the retail is already locked up, and when are we going to see them move in and open up?
Well, when we start from the beginning, she says, and Antioquia, that she's doing great.
Good. We want her to.
No, and she has a great story. She has story.
Yeah, it's beautiful stuff.
She also said she likes being alone.
I think she probably
I
has.
said I think I agree. The juice store was supposed to open. They told me 10 more days. That was this weekend. And then Trickling Springs is next to that. And Trickling Springs is a dairy creamery, and they're just getting a permit. They're working on a permit.
So that's leased and that's all.
Yeah, it's all leased. And then there's another lease out for a space there. It's a nail salon.
Yeah.
That's their name. And they've signed the lease, and now they're working on their plans.
On the corner?
All in that building on the north, not on the corner. The corner is a lease out for signature for a, poke and some other Asian cuisine combination. It's going to be my son told me what to say. I forgot what it was.
It's a restaurant.
It's a restaurant.
Right.
He's going to lease it.
And then downstairs is the
Downstairs is
veterinary, which is open and running, right?
Right.
Yeah. And then on 7th Street.
7th Street, there's a lease out for signature for an exercise place and everybody knows it's not a secret, it hasn't been signed, Sephora. A tech company that wants to lease the space, so that lease is out for signature. And we had somebody fall through today on one of the small spaces, but another guy really wants it, and that's what it is. And then there's a corner we have not leased, a corner space on C and 7th. And the interior space, we have some prospects. So there's a lot of leases out for signature. It takes months to get a lease done. Our lawyer has to write it, their lawyer has to review it, goes back and forth and back and forth. And then if they sign a lease, it's this big. And then it has to go to a contractor, has to have a permit, that takes 6 months. Then it has to be bid, and that takes 30, 60 longer days. And then they build it, and that takes 90 days to 160, 180 days.
Yeah.
It's just slow. I mean, that's the way it is in the world.
So we're going to see that vibrant, all those that retail space operating in another couple of months. Do you think?
The
Spring.
north building, you'll see, it will start happening. The south building's just gonna take longer. I mean, they'll sign the lease and then they'll start getting the permit compliance. But all that as I said, takes time.
I'm surprised that you haven't mentioned any of the restaurants.
Well, me too, that's part of our problem. We had a whole lot of great prospects that went to the wharf. Because the wharf, our 2-year hiatus with that lawsuit was our big opportunity. That was our opportunity to get a lot of those people, including politics and pros, but they all went to the wharf because we opened at the same time.
Yeah. I didn't know whether there was some consideration about not creating competition for the great restaurants.
Turns out, all the people we looked at were the same people they looked at. I mean, they had for whatever reason, they went there. I have my 2 cents about the wharf. I'd love to hear other people's comments about the wharf, but that is a little bit of our competition.
I'm curious because, again, working in 660, the medical unit downstairs in the basement, there was some rumor that they were moving across the street, are they?
Yes and no.
Well, they're interested, but they haven't
they're
signed the lease.
interested, but I think they make decisions very slowly, and I don't know if they make them. Yeah, they make an offer, and it's up to them and to come to terms with it. So I don't know, they might be staying where they are.
So, Amy, back to you for a second. I Googled yesterday famous architects. I invite you to do it. Google famous, there's a line, and you keep scrolling all across the top of the page. There are probably 50. They include Frank Lloyd Wright, Mies van der Rohe, Le Corbusier, Eero Saarinen, Frank Gehry, I.M. Pei, Anthony Gaudi. You can go on and on and on. Guess what? They're all men. You're a pioneer here. So, what is it about, why are they all men? And how is it being a leader in this industry that doesn't seem to be very welcoming to women?
Well, I really was at the cusp of it changing from literally all men to, women and then more and more women. The year before me in architecture school I think there were 4 women out of 50. My year there were 12, and the next year it was 50-50.
Oh.
And architecture schools are still pretty much 50-50 men and women. What happens is, though, that the women drop out in the profession as they move through the profession. And I think the American Institute of Architects, women membership has moved up finally from 8% to maybe close to 20. We have another woman architect here, Margaret Mook. I don't know if you know. And it's like many professions, it just, it's hard. And, but at the same time, for the 700 Penn project, when we were at the zoning commission for the 5 hearings, we had the zoning commission, I looked down the table of our team presenting, and I was a woman architect, the landscape architect, Lisa Del Place from Open Street, on 8th Street, was a woman. The 2 design people who ran the design were my direct clients from Ken's group, and his partners were women. And even the traffic transportation engineer was a woman. We were an all-woman team presenting to the zoning commission. And I thought, all right, we're getting there.
Cracking through, yeah. Can I ask you another question? Getting away from 700 Penn for a while. As an architect, what do you think of the African American Museum?
I like it a lot. I love it on the outside. I think that it perfectly captures what it is. It's not white marble. It's very different. The headdress, upper part of it, I think it's beautiful at many times of the day. And the fact that they use the same angle for that as the little peak on the Washington Monument, when you see those 2 together, they speak to each other. It's beautiful. And inside is basically exhibit design. And I think the lower half of the museum is very moving. Good use of space to press and then to release
I don't think you mentioned, or maybe I missed it, the child care center on this corner. Right? Going in upstairs, Trader Joe's, right? Or on the first floor, yeah. And is that soon to open, or?
They're getting their building permit.
The interior there. And about Trader Joe's, I love that store. I mean, I think we all are happy to have Trader Joe's in our neighborhood. But why is it in a cave? I expected it to be on that street level with bright space and everything.
Well, I guess, I'll speak for, I can't speak for them, but I think they felt that, it's less expensive to be below grade. You don't need windows per se, it's a grocery store. And they have I think a really great urban look, because you can walk in from the street, which is wonderful. You can go downstairs and park and be at grade and walk in. So it has, I think it's the right formula for urban density, a dense urban area. I mean, they do this throughout the city.
And it frees up the ground level for retail. Potentially, it happens to be a daycare center, but it could have been retail stores. A grocery store that long can be deadly on
Okay,
sidewalk.
so here's what I don't understand then. If they're down there, how do they get their stuff into the store? Where do the trucks unload?
And they have their own elevator
Where's the truck at?
on 7th Street.
On 7th Street?
Right opposite you, yeah.
On the street?
It's designed to disappear, thank you.
It's designed to disappear. I haven't seen it appear.
Right across
Yeah.
from Peregrine.
Right across from Peregrine.
Well, yeah, somewhere right around there.
But I haven't seen, seriously, I haven't seen trucks backing up there or unloading. They
Well,
do.
they're not allowed to come, they're not supposed to come during the day. They come after 11 p.m. and before 7 a.m.
That's the Trader Joe's trucks.
Oh, I see. All right. Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
It's an urban, it's the way, Whole Foods has been doing that for 2 decades. Building below and above.
But what about that parking? Is the parking going to be available to the, or is it now? I know it is for Trader Joe's, but for the public?
Yes, it
And
is.
how about the people in the affordable housing?
Well, they can park there. I don't know if you noticed.
If they can afford that.
Yeah, I guess, yes. It's open to the public. It's set-asides for the apartments, set-asides for the office, set-asides for Trader Joe's, and the rest is public. And it's a big parking lot. It's about 320 spaces.
320 spaces, so it's enough to support that, the retail in the project as well as.
Is it 1 floor or 2 floors?
2 floors.
2 floors. 320 spaces. Right. And also, before we open up to questions, I would be, really be upset if I didn't ask you about the #1 issue on Capitol Hill these days, the rodent problem. Yeah, how are you dealing with that? How have you dealt with that? Because there was a time when if you wanted to some entertainment in the evening, you just walked up either 7th Street or 8th Street and watched the rats inside the building or playing around outside the building.
I don't monitor it. It's the contractor and it's the construction manager, but I know I know they baited it, they set traps, they've done everything they're allowed to do with the law. And I think it's better, but maybe you all feel otherwise. I don't know. It seems like it's gotten better. I haven't seen the party that I used to see in the Plaza area.
I haven't seen as many, I must say, since the building. And Amy, also, I want to ask you before we open up. So across the street now from 700 Penn is the Eastern Market Metro Plaza. It's yours, right?
Well, I've worked on the master plan for it, with many of the people in this room. And
What's
that-
going to happen there and when?
Well, we just
What's
did
your vision
we
there?
did the master plan without direct involvement from the DC government or the National Park Service, the people who have control of the land. But Charles Allen has gotten the initial chunk of funding for it, and the DC District Department of General Services (DGS) is going to be running it as a project, and they hope to get started soon. There'll be a design phase and engineering phase, and then.
I wasn't part of any of those meetings, but what's it going to look like? What's going to happen?
Well, there are 6 different parcels of land. Okay, the one that is in the northeast corner, which has a lot of private residential, is going to have a lot of landscaping and a lawn, and then a children's play area over east side of it. The two medians in the middle of Pennsylvania Avenue are still owned in a jurisdiction of the National Park Service. We proposed bioswales to collect water from the road and to filter it and before releasing it. On those, then there are two little bow tie pieces, catty corner, and those were designed also as kind of rain gardens with benches, public benches ringing the outside of the ring. Then there's the large parcel across from the library where the metro station is. And we came up with this idea that perhaps the library could expand underneath 7th Street and have a new entry pavilion. But the DC Library has looked at it very carefully, and it doesn't look like they're going to do that. They haven't made a final decision. But there's also a bosque of trees there and a plaza right at the top of the escalators for the metro with a fountain. And if the library doesn't go there, I'm sure something else would be happening along that South Carolina axis.
No, that's very exciting to read that. Right. So we are at a time when I'd like to hear from you as well. My questions as a neighbor and watching this, I must admit, I found it very exciting to watch the whole thing happen. I stood out there, I don't know for how long, watching those cranes knock down the school. That was really fun. Never seen anything like that. And then digging that huge hole and just watching, you know, every step of it, and now watching the final efforts and being able to enjoy part of it like the trader does. So very exciting. So congratulations. Where do we go? Where do we start? Megan's got the one microphone, and Eli has the other. Start there, right there, Eli.
Hi, this is for Ken. Ken, what's your vision for that major retail space at the corner of Pennsylvania Avenue and 7th?
Well, we have a tech store going to one corner, and we have Sephora going to the rest of it.
Tech store.
Find that large space on the corner of 7th and 10th?
Yeah. It will be announced when leases get signed. As I mentioned, they're out for signature. It should happen
So the exercise will go in the retail spaces facing 7th Street?
I missed the beginning of that.
The exercise,
The exercise is on 7th Street.
it will be
Closer to the-
facing 7th.
Yes.
Thank you.
So a gym, is what you're talking about? Sephora.
An exercise place, so I'm not allowed to say what it is.
Oh, okay. All right. And the tech store is an Apple store?
I'm not allowed to say what that is.
All right. Megan wanted to. Yeah.
Yes, well, the entertainment has not stopped. There's still a few rats. But
Okay.
another entertainment is to watch the trucks. And it's not between 7 and 11 because basically I'm not out after 11 or before 7. Bob and I watched at least 20 minutes. I mean, this is a training session for a truck to get in. They had to go around the block several times. And then actually just last night I saw a truck back in. This was maybe 8:30. It is really a challenge. You have to be an advanced truck driver because it barely clears. And we saw them go back out and back out. At least 2 guys from Trader Joe's trying to help them get in. So the trucks are too long. Trucks are really too long for the environment. I saw a truck, the Trader Joe's in the West End actually crash. And their police were there, and it's just a big problem.
I think Trader Joe's has this problem everywhere they've gone into urban situations.
Right, and maybe something, if you park across the street, I would never park exactly across the street because the trucks come so close.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the
7th Street.
7th Street, one of the days.
They insist on using the same size truck for every Trader Joe's, no matter where it is.
That's an issue.
So there's a dock, I keep coming back to this dock. I'm going to, when I leave here, I'm going right to that loading dock. I want to see that. But is it down below in that, below ground?
Interest off, I think, right, and it goes down.
Oh, okay, right. So it's not on street level. Those trucks have to get in
The trucks have to go
entrances,
down
but the trucks are.
and turn, and
Got
it
it.
is really.
Got it.
really
But once they get down into the truck dock, there's room for them to turn around and come back out. They don't have to back out. There's lots of room down there. All the trash is collected from.
Let's just go eat one side then the other. Yeah.
Amy, I'm interested in the industrial implications of your work. So, where you talked about variegated design of Victorian brick, where did Victorian builders go for their brick, and where do you go? And how is it designed? Is it now digitized?
All the drawings for the job were done in computer. Nothing was hand drawn. There were local brick companies during the Victorian times when most of these townhouses were built. I have a catalog from a Washington, brick company. All those funny shapes, they're all in the catalog, but they've been long gone. There were some local brick companies, like out near the Arboretum. There's some kilns left there. But the bricks for 700 Penn, all but one of the different bricks we have, we might have 20, all but one come from within 500 miles of the site. The only one that comes further is the first floor of the Plaza building, which is a very dark iron spot brick. And it comes from Sioux City, Idaho, I guess. And we just couldn't find a closer one. But yeah, it's part of the whole LEED program and sustainability to try to buy as local as possible supplies to build them.
Good.
Amy, question for you. Wandering around the hill, eventually, been there a few years, you begin to pick out the Weinstein buildings, and you begin to see what they are. But I want to know one thing that is all the same with them, though they're very different.
The mic is not on.
It's on. Tilt it towards
The
your face.
treatment of the surface is very intense and it's very different. And I'd like you to tell a little bit about your theory of the surface and what it means, and what it says, and why you did it that way.
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
The surface of the
The surface of the building.
Yeah.
Why the brick, the play of light is important to you, and what does it mean? And why you did it. It's all so different, but it's all in the same continuum.
Well, I tend, because I am a modern architect, I tend to think of the face of a building as a plane, a two-dimensional plane. So I do a lot of the different colored bricks and cast stone, working in the plane like a painter does on a canvas. The exception to that is the 8th and D building where Trader Joe's is, where all the bricks are going in and out, and that picks up the south sun, and it all just dances.
So with the play of the light and the shade and
Yeah. It's
changes
very
that
important.
stuff.
It's very important. And the red brick Victorian building has got a really bad rap towards the end of the Victorian period, because if sun isn't on that red brick, they can be dark and brooding, but when the sun hits them, they're beautiful.
way over here.
How hard is it to find bricklayers and masons who can handle this now after years of plain boxes?
Good question. Yeah.
There are several very good masonry subcontractors in town. And we did not get one of the ones I hoped we would get on the 700 Penn project, and it's been quite an experience. The superintendent that they had, Nate was an excellent mason and really got it. But so much is being built right now, it's very hard to find masons. And there were they needed so many masons at once to be working with such a large project. It was hard to get really skilled masons. So there was a lot of education happening on the site.
Let me jump in. What amenities are in the residential buildings, Ken?
There's a pool on the roof
Pool on the roof of
of the 8th Street building.
8th Street building.
A club room. Well, and on the top, I guess there's a outdoor patio with a grill and all that on the 7th Street side. And then there's a courtyard, of course, in the middle for residential there's an exercise facility below, right?
Just for the residents?
Yeah.
Right.
What about left out?
There's a conference room that you could reserve to use. There's a catering kitchen off the big club room, which opens into the inner courtyard. And only residents can have access to the courtyard, not office people.
Oh, you're not talking about the C Street
No,
Plaza?
there's an internal
courtyard
Right.
that only residents
Yeah,
can
yeah.
enjoy. You can't access that from the street, from the out.
No, it's secure, because people's windows are right there on the ground level.
Back to the plaza, there is that, in the middle of the plaza, there's this sand pit.
That's gonna be the
I
fountain.
keep walking over and
That's going to be
walking
the
around.
fountain.
That's going to be a fountain?
Yeah, they're working on getting the plumbing right, but it's gonna be jets of water that come out of the pavement. And they'll be turned off on market days so that they don't get the goods out.
And about market days, is C Street going to be closed for the market days? Plaza going to be open? And will 7th Street continue to be closed for the market days?
Well, that's out of my realm, but the plan is that C Street is closed, and we got rid of curbs, so the tents can go throughout, including part of the plaza area. And we give up 66 tents could go there if you did it right.
Just in C Street and the plaza?
So C Street remains open from 8th Street to the garage, so that the garage can still function.
I got it.
From the garage towards 7th Street, we close the cars. All the market.
Which is the way it's been for the last,
Yeah.
right? Sure. I don't know if that mic is on, I haven't heard it.
It's on, the green light is on, you just have to speak into it.
Speaker.
Okay, can you hear me?
Got it, there you go.
Ms. Weinstein, you're famous on Capitol Hill. You built a lot of houses. Can you tell us how many houses? And have you built buildings, not houses? And have you built outside of this area?
I'd say about half of my work is on Capitol Hill, and the other half is elsewhere in Washington, D.C., all over the place. I don't know how many buildings I've done. I mean, the Ellen Wilson project was 152, units there. I have no idea, but a lot of them I did for Stanton Development, Canada's partners, who have been wonderful, really patrons over the years. They've been so committed to building high quality projects on that.
Does Stanton work anywhere other than the Hill?
No, it doesn't. I do, but it doesn't. The stand is just here.
Just here.
I met Amy. She was Ireland, here at my chamber group. That's how I met her.
And it's the food.
I said I was looking for an architect. She said, I'm an architect. So she did our first building, 17 Mass Avenue Northeast, which was beautiful.
Violin and flute.
Yeah.
Okay, of course, here, yes. Okay.
Follow up on that question. I'm familiar only with your work on the Hill. If I were to stumble upon a building that you designed in far northwest, let's say, would I recognize it as an Amy Weinstein building, or would you totally shift gears when you shift neighborhoods?
I fit the context. So I did a fire station in the Petworth community on Georgia Avenue. And fire stations were always clothed in the architectural style of the surrounding houses. It was like industrial buildings in a residential. So that one goes well in the Petworth community. I did 2 wings to the hospital for sick children out South Dakota Avenue in Northeast. Those were additions to the little cottage hospital that was original, which was a DC historic landmark. So it looks very different from other work.
Okay, we're back here.
Yes, my name's Ed. When we're talking about fitting the building into the context, that doesn't really work for me on 7th Street. The facade is so tall, it makes 7th Street very dark, and the architecture just doesn't seem to fit in with what's across the street. And then you have the loading dock. it just doesn't, it seems more like Alston dropped into our neighborhood than something that is compatible.
So you noticed the truck guy?
Yeah, okay. No, and I noticed one of the trucks trying to get in and out too. I have the same concern, and that's going to be a long-term problem. But just design-wise, I have all of those problems with it, and I'm just wondering what you're thinking or what your explanation for that is.
Well, we work pretty hard to break the scale down, and there are a lot of bay projections that come out that aren't
The height in particular.
Well, they tend to step down from Pennsylvania up to C Street. That breaks the scale up, and we broke where the truck dock is. There's an indentation in the whole thing, which is why you don't notice it that much. We were across the street from an entire row of little two-story buildings, though, and there's never going to be a way to have those be completely comfortable with the modern use that the project required. But I think that's okay, because the Victorians who built most of this community, they had no problem putting a four-story, really tall Victorian apartment house next to a little two-story Civil War structure. To them, it was progress. It was, it was the natural growth of cities. So I understand what you're saying.
But as a resident of the Hill, it feels like an invasion. I have to say that, and it just changes the scale of how one relates to the market and approaching the market. So anyway, I've had a different.
All right. So noted. You have a question here, and then we'll come back. Yeah.
I, like many of you, are a great fan of Amy's work, but in interest of full disclosure, I worked with her extensively on old Ellen Wilson project, which is now the town of Capitol Hill. Amy, the specific question to you, but more generally to the architectural profession, is all of your work, and the first building I remember you doing was the one in 6th and C at the edge of Stanton Park. All of them have incredibly interesting and complex brickwork. To some degree, and you mentioned that you had to go as far as 500 miles away to source the bricks. Is that becoming an issue, both getting the brick, but also the comment you made earlier about the paucity of masonry folks who are capable of executing what you designed? Is it going to cause you over time, or is it causing the profession to have to go to kind of the lowest common denominator because you just don't have the craftspeople who can execute anymore?
Well, in terms of the bricks themselves, I think we're entering a period of wonderful brick. I think all the glass office buildings and apartment houses, that people are tired of it. And, styles change, and we're now moving into, I think, more solid buildings, and brick is becoming much more popular. So if there's a market for brick, the brick manufacturers will make it. So I'm not worried about being able to get a lot of different kinds of brick. I find in general, after the recession in 2008, that the quality of craftsmanship throughout the construction trade has been lowered, not just masons. I think it's just not the way it used to be, and projects have to get built so fast now, because the faster it gets built, the more money they save. Projects have to be designed very fast now for the same reason, and it becomes more and more challenging to do the type of work that I do in that environment. So, but then the craftsmanship come and go, different eras, and when there's a market for good craftsmanship, it develops. It might lag, but it does develop.
Yes.
Maybe the courtyard.
We want to give you
a shine there. What's the courtyard? How's it going to work?
It will shine. Remember the sun diagrams from 11:30 in the morning till about maybe 1:30 in the afternoon. It's oriented towards the south, so it will get light in that short period.
Anyone else? Last time to go over and then we'll come back to you. Yes, please.
What income are the affordable housing units paid at?
They're broken out. It's a federal program. For the north building, several, I don't know the exact number, where the people who qualify can't make more than 30% of the average median income. If it's a two-person, I don't know what the average median income is for two, but for 4 people, it's 106,000. So they can't make more than 30% of that. The other, there's a bunch of units, I don't know the exact number, where it's 60% of the average median income, and then the others are 80%. That's the north building. On the south building, it's a DC program called inclusionary zoning, and there they have a different prescription. But there's 12 units in the south building where they can't make more than 100% of the average median income.
By the south building, you mean?
The
The
two,
Plaza building and the 8th Street.
There are 12 affordable units.
Oh, there are affordable units in those buildings as well.
And they're scattered throughout the
It's
building.
46 affordable units out of the total 100. We've got 33% affordable units in the building.
They're not all in that north building. Right.
I was just gonna say, Bob and I love the building, we don't think it's too high, I'm sorry the penthouse isn't there, so, you know, there's just different aesthetic judgments, but I think it works very well.
Thank you.
Well, what we all ought to do now is take a little break and all walk around the block. And then come back with more questions. We won't have the opportunity to do that, but you were very, very kind to give us your time and your great contribution to the neighborhood. Amy Weinstein. Okay. Thank you all for coming. Happy holidays, and we'll see you early in 2018 with the mayor. Thanks very much.